The front door of my house felt heavier than usual that Thursday evening. I had been gone for 7 days, closing the biggest marketing deal of my career in Atlanta. My suitcase wheels scraped against the hardwood floor as I stepped inside, and that's when I noticed the silence. Not the comfortable quiet of an empty home, but the thick, suffocating silence of people holding their breath. They were all in the living room. Every single one of them. My husband Brandon sat on the couch, his hands clasped between his knees, staring at the carpet. My sister Candace perched on the arm of the same couch, wearing a green dress I had bought her for her birthday last year. Her hand rested on Brandon's shoulder. My mother Gloria stood by the window, tears already streaming down her face, tissues clutched in her fist. And my daughter Brianna, my 14-year-old baby girl, sat in the armchair across from them, her face hard in a way I had never seen before. I stood in the doorway between the foyer and the living room, still holding my purse, my carry-on bag at my feet. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The clock on the mantel ticked, each second stretching into an eternity. "We need to talk," my mother finally said, her voice cracking on the last word. I looked at each of them in turn. Brandon still wouldn't meet my eyes. Candace's jaw was set, defiant almost, like she was preparing for battle. My mother looked like she might collapse. And Brianna was looking at me with something that made my stomach drop. Pity mixed with contempt, like I was already defeated and just didn't know it yet. "Mom," Brianna said, and her voice was steady, almost cold. "Your time is over. Dad is happier with her now." The words hung in the air between us. I watched my daughter's mouth form those syllables, heard them land in my ears, felt them process in my brain. "Your time is over. Dad is happier with her now." My sister, Candace. I looked at Brandon. He finally raised his eyes to meet mine, and in them I saw guilt, yes, but also relief. Relief that it was finally out in the open. Relief that he didn't have to hide anymore. I looked at Candace. My baby sister, 28 years old, wearing my gift, sitting in my house, her hand possessive on my husband's shoulder. She had the decency to look uncomfortable, but she didn't move her hand. I looked at my mother, who had brought me into this world, who had raised me to be strong and independent and trusting. She was sobbing now, and I realized she had known. She had known and hadn't told me. I looked back at my daughter, this child I had carried and birthed and raised and loved with every cell in my body. This girl I had stayed up with through nightmares, had cheered for at soccer games, had helped with homework and boy troubles and friendship drama. She was looking at me like I was the enemy. My time is over. Something crystallized inside me in that moment. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. I had walked into an ambush. This wasn't a conversation. This was an execution. They had all gathered here in my home to tell me that my life as I knew it was finished. They had discussed this. They had planned this. They had decided without me that this was how it would go. I felt my fingers tighten on my purse strap. I felt my breath moving in and out of my lungs. I felt my heart beating in my chest, steady and strong. I was still here. I was still standing. I was still Naomi Winters, and nobody in this room got to tell me when my time was over. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't demand explanations or hurl accusations. I didn't beg or plead or ask how this could have happened. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I simply turned around. "Naomi, wait," Brandon called out, his voice finally finding strength now that my back was to him. "We need to talk about this. We need to figure out what happens next." I kept walking. My suitcase was still by the door. My purse was still on my shoulder. I had everything I needed. "Naomi, please," my mother sobbed. "Don't leave like this. Let's talk about this. We're family." Family. The word should have meant something. It should have stopped me. But all I could think was that family didn't do this. Family didn't conspire and betray and ambush. Whatever we had been, we weren't family anymore. Candace said something, but I was already out the door. I heard footsteps behind me, heard Brandon calling my name, but I was in my car, engine starting, pulling out of the driveway of the house I had bought with my inheritance money, the house I had made into a home for people who had just told me my time was over. I drove. I didn't know where I was going at first, just away. Away from that living room and those faces and those words. The streets of our suburban neighborhood blurred past. Traffic lights changed from green to yellow to red. Other cars moved around me. Life continued as if the world hadn't just ended. Except it hadn't ended. That was the thing they didn't understand. They thought they were writing my ending, but they had just written their own. I found myself on the highway heading toward downtown. The city lights began to glow in the distance as the sun set behind me, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. I pulled off at an exit and found a hotel, a nice one, the kind with a lobby that smelled like expensive candles and soft music playing from hidden speakers. "I need a room," I told the woman at the front desk. She was young, maybe 25, wearing a maroon blazer with the hotel logo stitched on the pocket. "How many nights?" she asked, her fingers already moving over her keyboard. "How many nights? How long does it take to decide what to do when your entire life implodes? How long before you figure out what happens after your time is supposedly over?" "A week," I said. "Maybe longer." She nodded, processed my credit card, handed me a key card. "Room 847. 8th floor. Is there anything else I can help you with?" I shook my head and took the key. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I felt like I should be shaking, should be falling apart, should be something other than this calm, cold version of myself. The elevator ride up was quiet. A couple got on at the 3rd floor, laughing about something, his arm around her shoulders, her head tipped against his chest. They got off at the 6th floor, still wrapped up in each other, still happy. I wondered if they knew how easily that could shatter. Room 847 was clean and impersonal and perfect. White sheets, beige walls, a view of the city stretching out below. I set my suitcase on the luggage rack and my purse on the desk. I stood in the middle of the room and waited for the breakdown, for the tears, for the screaming. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something else rising up inside me. Not grief. Not despair. Rage. Pure, focused, ice-cold rage. My time was over? They had no idea. My time was just beginning. I woke up to sunlight streaming through curtains I didn't recognize. For 3 perfect seconds I didn't remember. Then it all came rushing back. The living room. The ambush. Brianna's voice. "Your time is over." My phone sat on the nightstand where I had plugged it in before falling asleep. The screen was dark, but I could feel it humming with ignored activity. I picked it up and pressed the power button. The lock screen exploded with notifications. Text messages, voicemails, missed calls. I scrolled through the call log. Brandon, 47 missed calls. Gloria, 32 missed calls. Candace, 21 missed calls. Brianna, 12 missed calls. Various other family members and friends, 6 missed calls. 118 missed calls total. I opened my text messages. They started coming in around 11 last night, just a few hours after I left. Brandon, Naomi, please answer your phone. We need to talk about this like adults. Gloria, sweetheart, please come home. We can work through this. Don't do anything rash. Candace, I never meant to hurt you. Just happened. Please call me so we can talk. Brianna, Mom, where are you? Everyone is freaking out. Then more throughout the night, growing increasingly desperate. Brandon, I know you're angry, but ignoring me won't solve anything. We have a daughter to think about. Gloria, Naomi Bennett Winters, you call me right now. I'm your mother and I demand to speak with you. Candace, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But you have to understand we didn't plan this. We fell in love. Brianna, Dad is really upset. He thinks you might do something crazy. Just let us know you're okay. I read through them all, each message another layer of audacity. They were worried. They were demanding. They were sorry. They wanted to talk. They needed to explain. They fell in love. I set the phone down on the bed and walked to the window. Friday morning traffic crawled below. People heading to work, to coffee shops, to lives that made sense. I was 32 years old, 12 years married, and apparently completely disposable. My reflection stared back at me from the window glass. I looked the same. Same brown skin, same dark eyes, same black hair pulled back in the ponytail I had slept in. But something inside was different. Something had shifted during the night. I had spent the last 12 years building a life. A marriage. A family. A home. I had worked 60-hour weeks to climb the corporate ladder while also being a good wife, a good mother, a good sister, a good daughter. I had balanced everything. I had sacrificed. I had compromised. I had bent and flexed and accommodated. And they had all gathered in my living room to tell me my time was over. The shower was hot enough to turn my skin pink. I stood under the spray and let myself remember. Not the good times. Those would come later when I was stronger. Right now, I needed to remember the signs I had missed. 3 months ago, Brandon stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. I had noticed but told myself he was stressed about work. 6 months ago, Candace started coming over more often, always when Brandon was home, always staying for dinner. I had been happy that my husband and sister were getting along. 8 months ago, Brandon joined a gym and started losing weight. I had been proud of him. 10 months ago, family dinners became more frequent, and every single time, there were these looks I couldn't quite interpret. Glances between Candace and Brandon. Knowing smiles from other family members. Uncomfortable shifts from my mother. I had seen it all and explained it all away because I trusted them. Every single one of them. I got out of the shower and dried off. The hotel provided a robe thick and white and soft. I wrapped myself in it and sat down at the desk with my laptop. First, I changed all my passwords. Email, bank accounts, credit cards, social media, everything. Every single password became something new, something they would never guess. Then I logged into our joint checking account. The balance was lower than it should have been. I clicked through recent transactions. Dinner at Luca's, an expensive Italian restaurant downtown. I had never been there. A charge from Tiffany's for $2,000. I had received no jewelry. Hotel stays. Flowers from an online service. Shopping at stores I didn't frequent. I opened a new browser tab and started a spreadsheet. Date, vendor, amount, description. I went back 6 months documenting everything suspicious. The list grew longer with each passing minute. Our savings account had been depleted by $15,000 over the past 8 months. Small withdrawals, $2,000 here, $3,000 there, never enough to trigger an alert from the bank but adding up to a substantial amount. I checked our credit card statements. More restaurants, more hotels, a weekend trip to the beach, jewelry, perfume, lingerie from an expensive boutique. Brandon had been romancing my sister with our money. With my money since I earned 60% of our household income. I took screenshots of everything. Every transaction. Every statement. Every receipt. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Evidence and saved it all. Then I backed it up to 3 different cloud services. My phone buzzed again. More messages. More calls. I turned it face down. Room service knocked at 10:30. I had ordered breakfast without thinking about it, muscle memory from years of business travel. Coffee, eggs, toast, fruit. I ate methodically, fueling my body because I needed strength for what came next. I pulled up Google and typed, "Best divorce attorneys near me." The search returned dozens of results. I clicked through the top 5, reading reviews, checking credentials, looking for someone fierce. Someone who would fight for me the way I should have fought for myself all along. One name kept appearing, Rebecca Shaw. 5-star reviews across multiple sites. Comments praising her aggressive tactics, her attention to detail, her refusal to settle for less than her clients deserved. I called her office. A receptionist answered on the second ring. Shaw Legal Services, how may I help you? I need to schedule a consultation with Miss Shaw, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm. Detached. Cold. Of course. May I ask what type of case? Divorce. I have an opening Monday morning at 9, or Tuesday afternoon at 2. Today was Friday. Monday felt too far away. But Tuesday felt impossible. Monday, I said. I'll take Monday. She took my information, confirmed the appointment, and wished me a good weekend. A good weekend. As if such a thing were possible. I spent the rest of the day in that hotel room, documenting my marriage's death by 1,000 cuts. Every text message I could find on our phone bill. Every credit card charge. Every bank withdrawal. Every piece of evidence that proved what I already knew. This hadn't just happened. This had been planned. This had been ongoing. This had been a choice they made over and over for months. By the time the sun set on Friday evening, I had built a case file that would make any attorney smile. My phone had stopped buzzing as frequently. The messages had changed tone too. Brandon, fine. If you want to be childish about this, I'll get a lawyer. That message made me laugh out loud. He thought I was being childish. He thought this was a tantrum. He had no idea what was coming. Saturday morning, I hired a private investigator. His name was Thomas Reed, and his website promised discretion, thoroughness, and results. His office was in a nondescript building downtown, the kind of place you could walk past 100 times and never notice. Thomas was in his 50s, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much of humanity's worst behavior. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. "How long do you think this has been going on?" he asked when I finished. "Based on the financial records, at least 8 months, I said. But I need to know everything. When it started. How often they've been together. If there's anything else I don't know about." Thomas nodded. "I'll need photos of both of them. Access to your financial records, which you've already compiled. Any known locations they frequent. Phone numbers. Email addresses if you have them." I provided everything. Photos from my phone. Bank statements. Credit card bills. Brandon's cell number. Candace's cell number. The address of her apartment. The address of Brandon's office. How fast can you work? I asked. I can have preliminary findings by Monday. A full report by Wednesday. Monday's fine, I said. I have a meeting with my attorney that morning. I'd like to bring your findings with me. We discussed his rates. They weren't cheap, but I didn't care. Some things were worth paying for. Truth was one of them. I spent the weekend in my hotel room, leaving only to buy essentials from a nearby store. Clothes, toiletries, a notebook and pens. I needed to document everything, not just the evidence but also my own thoughts and memories. Sunday afternoon, Thomas called. I have some preliminary information, he said. Can you come to the office? I was there in 20 minutes. The file he handed me was thin but devastating. Photos mostly. Brandon and Candace at restaurants. Brandon and Candace walking through the park, holding hands. Brandon and Candace entering a hotel. Brandon and Candace leaving that same hotel 3 hours later. These were all taken in the past 2 weeks, Thomas said. While you were away on your business trip. I flipped through the photos, my hand steady despite the images in front of me. In one, Brandon was kissing Candace's forehead. In another, they were laughing at something, their faces close together. In another, his hand was on the small of her back as they walked into a building I didn't recognize. What's this building? I asked, pointing to that last photo. An apartment complex downtown. Unit 412 is leased under your sister's name as of 6 months ago. 6 months, I repeated. The rent is $2,000 a month. I checked the payment history. It's being paid from a checking account that's in your husband's name only. A secret account. Of course. That's where the missing money from our joint savings had gone. He had been slowly draining our account to fund an apartment for my sister. There's more, Thomas said. He pulled out another document. I looked into your daughter's phone records. She's been in contact with both your husband and your sister regularly for the past 6 months. Text messages, phone calls. Almost daily communication. 6 months. Brianna had known for 6 months. Half a year of my daughter keeping this secret, watching me go about my life, knowing what was happening behind my back. And your mother? Thomas asked gently. What about her? Her phone records show increased contact with all 3 of them starting about 3 months ago. Regular conference calls. Group texts. 3 months. My mother had known for 3 months. I sat back in my chair and processed this timeline. 8 months ago, Brandon and Candace started their affair. 6 months ago, they got serious enough that he rented her an apartment and Brianna found out. 3 months ago, they brought my mother into their circle. And 1 week ago, they all decided it was time to tell me. Except they hadn't really told me. They had ambushed me. They had staged an intervention as if I were the problem that needed to be solved. Is there anything else? I asked. Thomas hesitated. I did some asking around. Your husband has been telling people that your marriage has been over for years. That you're cold, distant, more interested in your career than your family. He's been setting up a narrative. Of course he had. That's what cheaters did. They rewrote history to justify their choices. I became the bad guy in our story so he could be the hero in his. Thank you, I said, taking the file. Continue monitoring them. I want to know everywhere they go, everyone they talk to. I want a complete picture. Understood, Thomas said. I'll have a full report ready by Wednesday. I drove back to the hotel as the sun set, the file on the passenger seat next to me. Evidence of betrayal, printed in black and white. Proof that my instincts had been right, that the life I thought I had was a fiction they had all agreed to maintain. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about timelines and lies and the careful construction of my sister's apartment. $2,000 a month. For 6 months. $12,000 of our money, spent on a love nest for my husband and my sister. I thought about Brianna, my daughter, who had looked me in the eye for half a year and never said a word. Who had gone to school and come home and sat at the dinner table with me, all while knowing her father was sleeping with her aunt. I thought about my mother, who had raised me to value honesty and family and loyalty, who had known for 3 months and chosen to protect them instead of me. I thought about Brandon, who had promised to love me forever, who had stood in a church and made vows, who had held my hand when Brianna was born, who had built a life with me and then decided to build a different life without telling me. And I thought about Candace, my baby sister, who I had helped raise after our father left, who I had supported through college, who I had given jobs and money and love to, who had repaid all of that by taking my husband. The rage came back, cold and clear and absolutely certain. They had all made their choices. Now I would make mine. Monday morning I would meet with Rebecca Shaw. Wednesday I would have Thomas's full report. And soon, very soon, Everyone who thought my time was over would learn exactly what Naomi Winters was capable of when she stopped playing nice. Rebecca Shaw's office was on the 15th floor of a glass tower downtown. The reception area had leather furniture and abstract art on the walls. The receptionist, a young man with a kind smile, offered me coffee or water. I accepted the coffee, black, no sugar. "Miss Shaw will be with you in just a moment," he said. I sat and waited, the private investigator's file in my lap. I had dressed carefully this morning. A blue suit, professional and crisp. Low heels. Minimal jewelry. I needed to look like someone who had her life together, even though everything was falling apart. "Ms. Winters?" A woman appeared in the doorway, tall and confident in a red dress that meant business. "I'm Rebecca Shaw. Please come in." Her office was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Her desk was organized but lived in, files stacked neatly, a laptop open, photos of what looked like grown children on the credenza. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice," I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "Of course. You mentioned on the phone that you need a divorce attorney. Tell me about your situation." I told her everything. The business trip. The ambush. Brianna's words. The 118 missed calls. The financial records. The private investigator's findings. I laid it all out, keeping my voice steady, presenting the facts like I would in a business meeting. Rebecca took notes, asked questions, nodded in the right places. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me with something like respect. "You've done your homework," she said. "Most people come in here emotional and unprepared. You've already built half my case for me." "I don't want to just divorce him," I said. "I want him to understand that actions have consequences. I want what's mine. And I want to make sure he can't do this to anyone else without it costing him dearly." Rebecca smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted prey. "Let's talk about assets," she said. We spent the next 2 hours going through everything. The house, which was in my name only, purchased with inheritance money from my grandmother. My retirement account, built from 12 years of consistent contributions. Brandon's smaller retirement account. Our joint savings and checking accounts. His car, which was paid off. My car also paid off. Credit card debt, which was minimal. The furniture and belongings in the house. Everything. "The house is yours, no question," Rebecca said. "It's in your name, purchased with inherited funds. He has no claim to it." That was something, at least. The retirement accounts will likely remain separate, since they're individual accounts. The joint accounts will be split, but given that you've been the primary earner and he's been using joint funds to maintain a separate relationship, we can argue for a more favorable split. What about the money he's been spending on Candace? That's called dissipation of marital assets. If we can prove he was using joint funds for his affair, which your documentation clearly shows, the court can order him to reimburse you. I felt something loosen in my chest. Justice. Not revenge exactly, but accountability. "What about Brianna?" I asked. The question hurt to even form. Rebecca's expression softened. "Custody will be determined based on what's in her best interest. Given that she's 14, the court will likely take her preference into account. But her preference today, in the midst of the affair's revelation, may not be her preference in 6 months or a year." "She told me my time was over," I said. "In front of everyone." "She's a child who's been manipulated by her father," Rebecca said gently. "Children often align with the parent who seems happier, more fun, less restrictive. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It means she's a confused teenager in an impossible situation." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Now let's talk strategy," Rebecca said, pulling out a fresh legal pad. "First, we file for divorce immediately. We cite irreconcilable differences and adultery. We attach copies of your financial documentation and the private investigator's report. We request the house, your retirement account, 70% of joint assets due to dissipation, and joint custody of Brianna." 70%? He spent approximately $15,000 of joint funds on his affair. That needs to be repaid. Plus, we'll argue that given his behavior and poor judgment, he's not currently fit to make financial decisions on behalf of the family. I like the sound of that. Second, you need to protect yourself financially right now. Open a new bank account in your name only. Have your salary deposited there. Don't transfer any money from joint accounts without documenting it, but make sure you have access to funds for your expenses. Already done, I said. Rebecca looked impressed. Good. Third, change all passwords to everything. Social media, email, streaming services, everything. Also done. You're making my job easy, Rebecca said. Fourth, document every interaction with him from this point forward. Save every text, every voicemail, every email. If he shows up at your hotel, don't engage beyond saying everything goes through your attorney. What about my mother? My sister? You have no obligation to speak to any of them. If they contact you, you can ignore them. If they harass you, we can pursue a protective order. The idea of needing a protective order against my own family felt surreal, but nothing about this situation was normal. How long will this take? I asked. Depends on whether he contests it. If he agrees to our terms, we could have this wrapped up in 3 to 6 months. If he fights, it could take a year or more. A year. A year of living in limbo, of legal battles, of being tied to a man who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Let's proceed, I said. We spent another hour on paperwork. I signed form after form, each signature feeling like a step toward freedom. Rebecca explained the process, the timelines, what to expect. She was thorough and professional and exactly what I needed. One more thing, Rebecca said as I was preparing to leave. Take care of yourself during this process. Divorce is traumatic even when it's the right choice. Especially when there's been betrayal. Make sure you're eating, sleeping, seeing friends. Don't let this consume you. I nodded, but we both knew that was easier said than done. I left her office with a folder full of documents and a plan. By tomorrow, Brandon would be served with divorce papers. By the end of the week, he would understand that I wasn't the one whose time was over. I drove to the house that afternoon, timing it for when I knew everyone would be out. Brandon would be at work. Brianna would be at school. The neighborhood was quiet, the street empty. I let myself in with my key, feeling like an intruder in my own home. Everything looked the same. The photos on the wall, the furniture I had picked out, the curtains I had hung. But it all felt different now. Tainted. This house had been built on lies. I went straight to our bedroom. My bedroom, I corrected myself. I packed clothes, shoes, toiletries. I took my jewelry from the box on the dresser, my important documents from the file cabinet in the home office. Birth certificate. Social security card. Passport. Tax returns. All of it went into boxes. I found my grandmother's watch in the back of my nightstand drawer, the one she had left me when she died. I slipped it onto my wrist, feeling the weight of it, the history. She would have told me to stand up for myself. She would have been proud. In Brianna's room, I paused. Photos of the two of us covered her bulletin board. Her soccer trophies lined a shelf. Her favorite stuffed animal from childhood sat on her bed. She was still my daughter, even if she had forgotten that for a moment. I left everything untouched in her room. This wasn't her fault, not really. She was a child caught in an adult disaster. In the home office, I found more evidence. Printed emails between Brandon and Candace, carelessly left in a drawer. Love notes. Plans for future trips. Discussions about how to tell me. I photographed everything with my phone and left the originals where I found them. Let him wonder if I had been here. Let him sweat. I loaded my car with boxes and took one last look at the house. 12 years of my life lived here. 12 years of memories, good and bad. But I wasn't going to let those years define the rest of my life. I drove away without looking back. The divorce papers were served on Tuesday morning at Brandon's office. I knew because Thomas sent me a photo of the process server handing Brandon the envelope. Brandon's face in that photo was priceless, confusion giving way to shock, giving way to anger. My phone started ringing within minutes. I let it go to voicemail. Then he started texting. You can't be serious. We need to talk about this face to face. You're making a huge mistake. Think about Brianna. I deleted each message without responding. Rebecca had been clear. All communication goes through her office. I forwarded Brandon's text to her and turned my phone on silent. Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after the ambush, Brandon found me. I don't know how he got the hotel name, but there he was in the lobby when I came down from my room. He was dressed for work, a gray suit that I had probably paid for, his hair neatly styled. He looked tired. Naomi, he said, standing up from one of the lobby chairs. Please. We need to talk. All communication goes through my attorney, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I started toward the exit. Naomi, don't do this. He followed me. Don't throw away 12 years of marriage without even discussing it. I stopped and turned to face him. We were in the middle of the lobby, other guests milling around, the front desk staff trying not to stare. Discuss it? I said. The way we discussed your affair with my sister? Oh wait, we didn't discuss that. You just did it. It wasn't supposed to happen, Brandon said. It just did. These things happen, Naomi. People fall out of love. People grow apart. Did we grow apart? Or did you push us apart so you could justify what you were doing? That's not fair. Fair? The word came out sharper than I intended. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about how you spent our money on my sister. Let's talk about how you turned our daughter against me. Let's talk about how you let everyone know about your affair except me. Brianna needed to know, Brandon said. She deserved to understand what was happening. She's 14. She deserved to have parents who could act like adults. Like you're acting now? Serving me with divorce papers at work? Hiring a private investigator? Freezing me out completely? What did you expect, Brandon? Did you think I'd just accept this? Did you think we'd all hold hands and figure out some new family arrangement? He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I thought you'd at least give me a chance to explain. You had 12 years to explain. You had 8 months to tell me the truth. You chose to lie instead. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? I almost laughed. You were protecting yourself. Fine, Brandon said, his voice changing, hardening. You want to know the truth? Here it is. Our marriage has been dead for years, Naomi. You're married to your job. You're cold. You're distant. When was the last time we actually connected? When was the last time you looked at me like I mattered? There it was. The narrative Thomas had warned me about. I was the bad wife. I was the one who drove him away. I was the reason he had to find comfort in my sister's arms. When was the last time I looked at you like you mattered? I repeated. Maybe around the same time you stopped actually mattering. Around the time you started lying to me every single day. Around the time you decided my sister was more important than your wedding vows. Candace understands me. Candace is pregnant, Brandon said. The words hung in the air between us. The lobby noise faded away. All I could hear was my own heartbeat loud in my ears. What did you say? She's pregnant. 8 weeks. I'm going to be a father again. My vision narrowed. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. He had not only betrayed me with my sister, he had created a child with her. A child that would forever tie them together. A child that would make me the outsider in my own family. Congratulations, I said, my voice dead calm. I hope you're prepared to support this child on your half of our marital assets. Because you're not getting a penny more from me. I pulled the divorce papers from my purse. Rebecca had given me a copy to carry for exactly this reason. My attorney will be in contact, I said, handing them to him. Don't contact me again. Don't come to my hotel. Don't call. Don't text. Everything goes through Rebecca Shaw. Naomi, he said, but I was already walking away. And Brandon? I called over my shoulder. My time isn't over. It's just beginning. Yours, on the other hand, is about to get very complicated. I made it to my car before the shaking started. I sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing through the rage and pain and shock. Pregnant. Candace was pregnant with Brandon's child. My phone rang. Patricia, my best friend from work. I had been avoiding her calls, not ready to talk about any of this, but suddenly I needed to hear a friendly voice. Hello, I answered. Finally, Patricia said. I've been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. Where are you? It's a long story, I said. I have time. I told her everything. The ambush. The affair. The pregnancy. Patricia listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Where are you right now? She asked. In my car outside a hotel downtown. I'm coming to get you. We're going to dinner, and you're going to eat actual food, and we're going to figure this out. Patricia, I can't. You can and you will. Text me the address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. She hung up before I could protest. Patricia arrived in 25 minutes, not 30. She pulled up in her red sedan, got out, and walked straight to my car. She opened my door and looked at me with the kind of fierce friendship that makes everything slightly more bearable. Let's go, she said. We went to a small restaurant she knew, quiet and dark and anonymous. We ordered wine and pasta, and for the first time in 2 weeks, I ate a meal that wasn't room service. You know what the worst part is? I said halfway through dinner. I keep thinking about all the times I trusted them. All the times I defended Brandon to my friends when they said he seemed distant. All the times I invited Candace over because I thought she needed family support. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid, Patricia said firmly. You're trusting. There's a difference. Trusting is just another word for naive. No. Trusting means you're a good person who expects others to be good too. They're the ones who failed, not you. I wanted to believe her. But sitting there, knowing my sister was carrying my husband's child, knowing my daughter thought I was the problem, knowing my mother had chosen their side over mine, it was hard to feel like anything other than a fool. What do I do now? I asked. You survive, Patricia said. You get through the divorce. You rebuild. And you show all of them that they didn't break you. Because they didn't, did they? I thought about that. 2 weeks ago, standing in my living room hearing Brianna say my time was over, I had felt broken. I had felt like my life was ending. But sitting here now, with my best friend across the table and a plan in motion and divorce papers already served, I didn't feel broken. I felt angry. I felt hurt. But I also felt strong. No, I said. They didn't break me. Good, Patricia said. Because I need you back at work on Monday. We have a new client pitch and you're the best closer we have. Work. I had barely thought about work in 2 weeks, too consumed by personal disaster. But work had always been my strength. Work was where I excelled. Work was where I mattered. I'll be there, I said. That night, back in my hotel room, my phone rang again. This time it was my mother, calling from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Naomi. My mother's voice was thick with tears. Please talk to me. Please let me explain. Explain what, Mom? Explain how you knew for 3 months and said nothing? Explain how you sat at my dining room table and smiled at me while knowing my husband was sleeping with my sister. I didn't know what to do, Gloria said. They told me they were in love. They said you and Brandon had been unhappy for years. They said they were going to tell you themselves. So you just waited? You just let me walk into that ambush? I thought it would be easier if everyone was there. If we could all talk about it together as a family. That wasn't a family meeting, Mom. That was an execution. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. You all decided my marriage was over before I even knew it was in trouble. You all chose him and her over me. Your own daughter. I chose everyone, Gloria said. I was trying to keep the family together. By letting them tear it apart? That's not how it works. You don't keep a family together by protecting the people doing the damage. My mother was crying now, really crying. Part of me wanted to comfort her. The dutiful daughter part, the part that had always tried to make everyone happy. But a stronger part, the part that had been forged in the past 2 weeks, stayed quiet. I'm sorry, Gloria finally said. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I made the wrong choice. I should have told you the moment I found out. I should have protected you. Yes, I said. You should have. But you didn't. Can you forgive me? The question hung in the air. Could I? Should I? Did forgiveness even matter when the damage was already done? I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if I can forgive any of you. And I don't know if I want to try. We're family, Gloria said. Family doesn't do what you all did to me. So maybe we're not family anymore. Maybe we're just people who used to know each other. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't from anger. It was from relief. I had said it out loud. I had named the thing I had been feeling for 2 weeks. They weren't my family anymore. Family doesn't betray you. Family doesn't conspire against you. Family doesn't tell you your time is over. My family was gone. But maybe that was okay. Maybe it was time to build something new. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into it with renewed focus, channeling all the rage and pain into something productive. Patricia had been right, we had a major client pitch on Thursday, and I was determined to close it. The client was a tech startup looking to rebrand after a PR disaster. They needed someone who understood crisis management, who could take a mess and turn it into an opportunity. Someone who knew what it was like to rebuild from nothing. I knew exactly how to pitch them. Thursday morning, I walked into the conference room in a green dress that meant business, my presentation ready, my confidence rebuilt. The client team sat on one side of the table, our team on the other. Patricia gave me an encouraging nod. Thank you for meeting with us, I started. I understand you're looking for a partner who can help you navigate a difficult transition. Someone who understands that sometimes the old version of your story isn't working anymore, and you need to write a new one. I clicked to the first slide. I recently learned something about reinvention. Sometimes the life you thought you were living is actually a fiction. And when that fiction falls apart, you have 2 choices. You can try to rebuild the same broken thing, or you can start fresh and build something better. The presentation went on for 40 minutes. I talked about their product, their values, their vision for the future. But underneath it all was my own story transformed into a business strategy. By the time I finished, the client team was nodding. That was excellent, the CEO said. Exactly what we needed to hear. When can you start? We shook hands. They signed the contract right there in the conference room. Patricia practically tackled me with a hug after they left. "That was incredible," she said. "I don't know what's happened to you in the past few weeks, but you're on fire." "I'm angry," I said simply. "And I'm channeling it." My boss, Robert Chin, caught me as I was leaving the office that evening. "Naomi, do you have a minute?" We went to his office. Robert was in his 50s, had been with the company for 20 years, and had always been fair with me. "That was impressive work today," he said. "The team is talking about making you regional director. It would mean a promotion, a significant raise, and relocation to Seattle. Are you interested?" Seattle. 3,000 miles from here. 3,000 miles from Brandon and Candace and the wreckage of my old life. "When would this start?" I asked. "We'd need you there by the end of next month. I know it's fast, but the Seattle office needs strong leadership, and after today's performance, I think you're exactly what they need." "A month. For weeks to wrap up the divorce, pack my life, and start over." "I'm interested," I said. "Good. We'll make it official next week. Congratulations, Naomi. This is well deserved." I walked out of that building feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Not the desperate hope that things might go back to normal, but real hope for something different. Something better. That weekend, I moved out of the hotel and into a furnished apartment. Month-to-month lease, nothing permanent, but it was nice to have more than one room. I bought groceries. I cooked actual meals. I started running in the mornings, pushing my body until my mind was too tired to spiral. Wednesday afternoon, Thomas called with his final report. "I have everything," he said. "Timeline, locations, communications. It's all documented." "What's the damage?" I asked. "The affair started 8 months ago at a family barbecue. Your husband and sister were both drunk. They kissed in your garage. It escalated from there." "My garage? In my house?" "While I was probably inside, serving food or cleaning up or doing any of the 1,000 things I did to keep everyone happy." "They've been meeting 2 to 3 times a week since then," Thomas continued. "Hotels mostly, but also at the apartment your husband rented. He's been using that apartment as an office, telling you he needed space to work. Your daughter found out 6 months ago when she saw text messages on his phone. Your mother found out 3 months ago when your sister told her, apparently hoping for support. And everyone just went along with it. It appears so. I also have financial records showing your husband has withdrawn about $25,000 total from various accounts to support the affair. Rent on the apartment, meals, gifts, a weekend trip to wine country. $25,000. Almost 30% of our annual savings. Gone so Brandon could play house with my sister. Thank you, Thomas. Send everything to my attorney. Already done. Good luck, Naomi. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this incredibly well." I didn't feel like I was handling it well. I felt like I was barely holding it together, like one wrong word or unexpected memory could shatter me completely. But I was good at pretending. I had been pretending my marriage was fine for months, maybe years. I could pretend a little longer. That night, alone in my new apartment, I let myself look at old photos on my phone. Brianna as a baby. Brandon and me on our wedding day. Family vacations. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. All of it had seemed so real at the time. So solid. So permanent. When had it started to crack? Had there been a specific moment when Brandon looked at me and decided I wasn't enough? Had there been a specific moment when Candace looked at my husband and decided she wanted him for herself? Or had it been gradual, a slow erosion of loyalty and love and basic human decency? My phone buzzed with an email. Rebecca Shaw. "Naomi, the judge has scheduled a preliminary hearing for next month. Brandon is contesting the division of assets. He's claiming he contributed equally to the household and deserves 50% of everything. His attorney is also requesting full custody of Brianna, citing your instability and absence. We need to meet to prepare. Call me tomorrow." Instability. Absence. I had worked 60-hour weeks to provide for my family. I had traveled for work to close deals that paid for our house, our cars, our lifestyle. And now that was being used against me. I forwarded the email to Patricia with a single word, unbelievable. She called me immediately. "He's doing what?" "Claiming I'm an unfit mother because I work." "That's ridiculous. Brianna is 14. She's not a toddler who needs constant supervision. Try telling that to Brandon's attorney." "What are you going to do?" "Fight," I said. "I'm going to fight for my daughter. I'm going to fight for what's mine. And I'm going to make sure Brandon understands that you don't get to destroy someone's life and then claim you're the victim." "That's my girl," Patricia said. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my new apartment and made a decision. Brandon wanted to paint me as the bad guy? Fine. But I had documentation. I had evidence. I had truth on my side. And I had something else. I had nothing left to lose. They had already taken my marriage, my sister, my daughter's respect, my mother's loyalty. What else could they take? The answer was nothing. There was nothing left to take, which meant I could fight without fear. I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not legal documents, but a timeline. A detailed account of my marriage, the red flags I had missed, the ways Brandon had slowly distanced himself while I was busy being the responsible one. I documented every sacrifice I had made for our family. Every business trip I had taken to pay for Brianna's private school. Every late night at the office that had funded our comfortable life. I wrote until my eyes burned and my fingers ached. And when I finally stopped, I had a document that told the truth. My truth. The one they had tried to rewrite. I sent it to Rebecca with a note. Use this however you need to. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in weeks. Seattle was cold and rainy when I arrived in mid-November. Perfect weather for a new beginning, I thought, watching the city appear through the airplane window. Gray skies and endless water and mountains in the distance. Nothing like home. The company had arranged temporary housing for me, a furnished apartment in a high-rise downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. Clean, modern, empty. What? I moved in with 3 suitcases and a determination to never look back. The Seattle office was smaller than the one back home, but the energy was different. Younger staff, more creativity, less politics. My new team was excited to have me, and I was excited to prove myself all over again. Patricia called every few days with updates from home. The divorce was progressing. Brandon was still contesting everything, dragging his feet, making demands. His attorney had filed a motion claiming I had abandoned the family by moving to Seattle. Rebecca shut that down fast, Patricia said. She pointed out that you accepted a job promotion, which is hardly abandonment. And that Brandon is welcome to visit Brianna anytime, since she's still living in your house. How is Brianna? I asked. I hadn't spoken to my daughter since the ambush. She hadn't called. I hadn't called her. We were locked in a standoff neither of us knew how to end. According to the grapevine, not great. Apparently the reality of her father's choices is setting in. What do you mean? Candace moved into your house. Into your bedroom. Brianna is not handling it well. I felt a mixture of emotions at that news. Satisfaction that my daughter was finally seeing the truth. Sadness that she had to learn it the hard way. And underneath it all, a cold pleasure that Candace's fairy tale was showing its cracks. Keep me posted, I said. Work consumed my days. I was rebuilding the Seattle office's client base, implementing new strategies, mentoring younger staff. I worked 12-hour days and came home exhausted, which was exactly what I needed. No time to think. No time to feel. Just work and sleep and repeat. 2 months into my Seattle life, I met Jerome at a company holiday party. He was an architect, hired to redesign our office space. Tall, thoughtful, with kind eyes and an easy smile. We talked about buildings and cities and starting over. He had been divorced 3 years earlier, no kids, no drama. Seattle is good for fresh starts, he said. Something about the rain washes everything clean. I could use that, I said. We exchanged numbers. Nothing serious. Just 2 people who had survived their own disasters, finding comfort in shared experience. He called the next week and asked if I wanted to get coffee. We met at a cafe near the water, watched the ferries come and go, talked about everything except our past. It was easy. Uncomplicated. Exactly what I needed. We started seeing each other casually. Dinner once a week. Movies. Long walks through the city. Jerome didn't push. He didn't ask about my divorce or why I had moved to Seattle or what I was running from. He just existed beside me, solid and real and undemanding. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone in my apartment, video chatting with Patricia back home. It was the first Christmas in 15 years that I hadn't spent with family, and it felt both lonely and liberating. Any word from Brianna? Patricia asked. Nothing. You. She's struggling. Your mother is apparently trying to play mediator between everyone, but it's not working. Candace and Brandon are fighting constantly. The pregnancy hormones are making her emotional, and Brandon is realizing that dating your sister-in-law is different from actually living with her. Good, I said, and I meant it. January brought news from Rebecca. The divorce was finally moving toward resolution. Brandon had accepted most of the terms, too exhausted from fighting to continue. The house was mine. 70% of assets were mine. Joint custody of Brianna, though she was old enough to choose where she wanted to live. "He wants to talk to you," Rebecca said. His attorney called and asked if you'd be willing to have a conversation. Not a legal negotiation, just a conversation. About what? I don't know. But I advised him that anything he says could be used in court if necessary. "I don't want to talk to him," I said. I told him that. But I needed to relay the message. I hung up and stared out at the Seattle skyline. What could Brandon possibly have to say to me now? Sorry? Too late for that. He had made his choices. Now he got to live with them. February brought a surprise email from Brianna. Subject line, "From your daughter." I stared at it for 10 minutes before opening it. "Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know what I said was terrible. I've been in therapy and I'm starting to understand that I was manipulated and confused and wrong. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. And that I miss you. And that I understand if you hate me." I read it 3 times, feeling something crack in the careful walls I had built around my heart. My daughter. My baby. She was still in there somewhere, underneath the teenage rebellion and the poor choices and the words that had cut so deep. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I let myself feel it. The anger. The love. The hurt. The hope. All of it at once, messy and complicated and real. That weekend, I went hiking in the mountains outside Seattle with Jerome. We climbed to a viewpoint overlooking the city, and I told him about Brianna's email. "Are you going to respond?" he asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks it's too soon." "There's no timeline for healing," Jerome said. "You respond when you're ready, not when she needs you to." That night I wrote back. Just a few lines. "Brianna, thank you for your email. I appreciate your honesty. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I'm glad you're in therapy. Keep working on yourself. We'll figure out the rest eventually. Mom." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a door left slightly open just in case. March brought spring to Seattle. Cherry blossoms appeared in the parks. The rain lessened. Jerome and I became more serious, spending weekends together talking about futures. He made me laugh. He made me feel safe. He never once compared me to his ex-wife or made me feel like I needed to be anything other than myself. "I'm falling for you," he said one night over dinner. "I wanted you to know. No pressure. Just truth." I looked at him across the table, this man who had appeared in my life at exactly the right moment. Not to save me, I had saved myself. But to remind me that not everyone was Brandon. Not every man was a liar. Not every relationship was doomed. "I'm falling for you too," I said. And it was true. Slowly, carefully, I was learning to trust again. Not blindly the way I had before. But thoughtfully, with my eyes open and my guard up, ready to walk away at the first sign of betrayal. But Jerome didn't give me any signs. He was steady. Reliable. Honest. Everything Brandon had pretended to be but wasn't. April brought the final divorce decree. It was over. Officially, legally, completely over. 12 years of marriage dissolved into a legal document that divided assets and assigned custody and said nothing about the betrayal, the pain, the destruction of everything I had believed in. Rebecca called to congratulate me. "You're free, Naomi. Time to start the next chapter." I celebrated with Patricia, who flew out to Seattle for the weekend. We drank wine and laughed and talked about everything and nothing. She met Jerome and gave her approval. "He's good for you," she said. "Totally different from Brandon." "That's the point," I said. My phone rang that night. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello. Naomi." It was Brandon's father, Harold. "I know you probably don't want to hear from any of us, but I needed to call. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. For my son. For what he did. For what he put you through." I was silent, processing the sound of his voice. Harold had always been kind to me. A good father-in-law. We had gotten along well. "Thank you," I finally said. "He's miserable," Harold continued. "If that helps at all. Living with Candace is nothing like he thought it would be. The baby is due in 2 months and he's terrified. He knows he destroyed the best thing in his life, and he doesn't know how to fix it." "He can't fix it," I said. "That's not how this works." "I know. But he wanted me to tell you that he's sorry. That if he could take it all back, he would. He made his choices. I made mine. We're done. I understand. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in this family condoned what he did. Some of us think you're the best thing that ever happened to him, and he's a fool for losing you." "Thank you, Harold. That means a lot." We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. He asked about Seattle. I asked about his health. We both carefully avoided mentioning Brianna or Candace or the impending baby. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: closure. Not the kind that comes from revenge or justice or seeing your enemies suffer, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you did everything right and sometimes people still hurt you and that's on them, not you. I was free. Really, truly free. And for the first time since that terrible night in my living room, I believed it. Summer arrived in Seattle, and with it came longer days and an unexpected message. It wasn't from Brandon or Candace or even Brianna. It was from Patricia, and the subject line made my stomach drop. You need to know this. I opened the email while sitting in my office, coffee in hand, mountains visible through my window. Word from home is that Brandon and Candace's relationship has completely fallen apart. The baby was born 2 weeks ago, a boy, and apparently the reality of parenthood plus living together plus everyone judging them has destroyed whatever they thought they had. Brandon moved out. Candace is living alone in your old house, which I know is technically still yours until it sells, with a newborn, no job, and no support system since she burned every bridge. Brandon is living with his dad and trying to rebuild his business, which took a major hit when clients found out about the affair. Your mom is trying to keep everyone together but failing. Brianna asked me to tell you that she's ready to talk whenever you are. Call me. I read it twice, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction. They had destroyed my life for their great love story, and it turned out to be nothing but lies and hormones and selfishness. Part of me felt sorry for that baby born into such a mess. And a small part of me, the part one didn't like to acknowledge, felt vindicated. I called Patricia immediately. Tell me everything, I said. It's bad. Like really bad. Candace called me crying last week asking if I knew how to reach you. I told her absolutely not. Apparently the baby has colic and doesn't sleep, she's exhausted and broke. And Brandon comes by once a week for an hour and then leaves. She thought he was going to be this devoted father and partner, and instead he's basically an absentee dad paying child support. Child support from what money? I asked. He got 30% of our assets, and most of that is probably going to pay his legal fees. Exactly. He's struggling. His business lost about half its clients. People in your community were apparently disgusted by what he did. Sleeping with your wife's sister is bad enough, but doing it while the wife is working to support the family? People found that particularly gross. I should have felt more satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. What about Brianna? I asked. She's angry at everyone. She moved in with your mother temporarily because she can't stand being around Candace and the baby, and Brandon doesn't have space for her at Harold's place. She's finishing up her sophomore year and doing okay in school, but she's in therapy twice a week. Gloria is apparently paying for it. Good, I said. Therapy is good. She really does want to talk to you, Naomi. She's written you several letters. I got them, I admitted. I had received 4 letters from Brianna over the past few months, each one more raw and honest than the last. I had read them all but hadn't responded beyond that first email. Are you going to answer her? I don't know. Maybe. I'm building something good here, Patricia. I have a great job, a great relationship, a great life. I'm not sure I'm ready to let them back in and risk it all falling apart again. That's fair, Patricia said. But she's your daughter. And she was manipulated by adults who should have known better. At some point you might want to rebuild that bridge. At some point, I agreed. But not today. A week later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Naomi? It's Candace. I should have hung up. I had no obligation to speak to her. But curiosity kept me on the line. What do you want? I asked. I need your help. Her voice was desperate, shaky. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you. Help with what? The baby. Brandon. Everything. I can't do this alone. I thought he would be here, but he's not. He's never here. And I can't afford the house you own, and I don't have anywhere else to go, and my mom won't help me because she's so angry about what I did, and I need help. The audacity of it took my breath away. She had slept with my husband, destroyed my family, and now she wanted me to rescue her from the consequences of her actions? You need to leave my house, I said, my voice cold and calm. I'm selling it. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Naomi, please. I have a baby. I can't afford to move. You should have thought about that before you decided to have an affair with my husband. You're 28 years old. You're an adult. Figure it out. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I fell in love. You fell in lust, I corrected. You fell into selfishness and bad decisions. And now you're dealing with the results. That's not my problem. We're sisters. We were sisters. Now we're just two people who used to know each other. And you need to be out of my house by the end of next month, or I'll have you evicted." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from anger this time. From power. From knowing I didn't have to save her. I didn't have to be the bigger person. I didn't have to sacrifice myself to make her life easier. She had made her choices. Now she could live with them. That night, Jerome came over with takeout and found me staring out the window. "You okay?" he asked, setting food on the counter. I told him about the call. About Candace's request. About my response. "Good for you," he said. "You don't owe her anything." "Part of me feels guilty," I admitted. "There's a baby involved. An innocent baby. The baby has a father. Let Brandon figure it out. You spent 12 years being responsible for everyone. You don't have to do it anymore." He was right. I didn't. That life was over. That version of me, the one who fixed everyone's problems and sacrificed her own happiness to keep the peace, was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who set boundaries. Someone who walked away from people who hurt her, even if they shared blood. The next day, I called a realtor in my old city and put the house on the market. It sold in 3 weeks for $50,000 more than I had expected. I used the money as a down payment on a beautiful house in the Seattle Hills, all windows and light and space. My house. My rules. My life. News filtered back through Patricia over the following months. Brandon had started dating someone new, a woman with no connection to our past. Candace had moved into a small apartment with help from Harold, who apparently felt sorry for his grandson. Gloria was trying to maintain relationships with everyone and succeeding with no one. Brianna was preparing for her junior year and had stopped writing letters. I felt distant from all of it, like I was reading about strangers instead of people I had once loved. September came. 1 year since the ambush. 1 year since Brianna had told me my time was over. 1 year since I had walked out of that living room and into a completely different life. I was sitting on my deck, watching the sun set over the sound, when my phone rang. Brianna. I stared at her name on the screen for a long moment, then answered. "Mom?" Her voice was tentative, scared. "Hi, Brianna. I wasn't sure you'd pick up." Neither was I. Silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I know I've said it in letters, but I need to say it out loud. I'm sorry for what I said. I'm sorry for taking his side. I'm sorry for not understanding what you were going through. I was wrong. So wrong." "Thank you," I said. "Do you think?" She paused. "Do you think we can ever fix this? You and me?" I thought about that. Could we? Did I want to? Was I ready to let her back in? "I don't know," I said honestly. "But maybe we can try. Slowly." "Slowly is good," Brianna said, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "I miss you, Mom." "I miss you too, baby." We talked for an hour, carefully avoiding Brandon and Candace and everything that had gone wrong. We talked about school and friends and her therapy and my new life in Seattle. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like before. But it was a start. When we hung up, Jerome found me on the deck, tears streaming down my face. "Happy tears or sad tears?" he asked. "Both," I said. "Definitely both." October brought unexpected letters, actual physical letters, forwarded from my old address to my Seattle home. 2 envelopes, one from Brandon and one from Candace, both postmarked the same day. I stared at them on my kitchen counter for 3 days before opening them. Brandon's came first. His handwriting was the same as always, neat and controlled on the expensive stationery he had always preferred. "Naomi, I know you have no reason to read this. I know I don't deserve your time or attention or forgiveness. But I need to say this anyway, even if you throw this letter away the moment you finish reading it. I made a terrible mistake. The worst mistake of my life. What I had with Candace wasn't real. It was infatuation and stupidity and selfishness. You were the real thing. You were my partner, my best friend, the mother of my child. And I threw it all away for something that looked exciting but was actually just destructive. I'm not asking you to take me back. I know that ship has sailed. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I had. I see what I lost. And I understand that it's my fault. If you ever find it in your heart to forgive me, I'd like to try to be friends. For Brianna's sake, if nothing else. But I understand if that's not possible. I hope Seattle is everything you wanted it to be. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be happy. Brandon. I read it twice, feeling nothing but mild contempt. You hoped I was happy? You wanted to be friends? After everything he had done, everything he had destroyed, he thought a nice letter and some empty apologies would fix things? I put his letter in a drawer and forgot about it. Candace's letter was longer, more emotional, written on notebook paper in her messy scrawl. Naomi, I don't even know where to start. I'm sorry feels too small for what I did. I destroyed our relationship. I destroyed our family. I hurt you in the worst possible way, and I did it knowing exactly what I was doing. There's no excuse. I was selfish and stupid and I thought I was in love, but really I was just enjoying the attention. Brandon made me feel special, wanted, important. I didn't think about you. I didn't think about Brianna. I didn't think about anyone but myself. Now I'm alone with a baby, no job, no money, and no support. Everyone hates me and they should. I hate me too. The baby is beautiful. His name is Carter. He has Brandon's eyes and my nose and he deserves so much better than the mess I've made. I'm writing to you because I don't know what else to do. I'm drowning here. I can't afford rent. I can't afford daycare. I can't afford anything. Mom won't help me. She says I made my bed. Brandon comes by once a week and hands me a check and leaves. I have nobody. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I have no right to ask. But we're family. We're sisters. Doesn't that mean something? Please, I'm begging you. Help me. Candace. I read that letter once and then walked it directly to my trash can. The audacity of her, thinking she could destroy my life and then ask me to fix hers. The absolute, stunning audacity. We were sisters. Past tense. That ended the night she put her hand on my husband's shoulder in my living room and looked at me like I was the one who didn't belong. She wanted help? She could ask Brandon. She could ask their child's father. She could ask anyone but me. I called Rebecca Shaw immediately. I got letters from both of them, I said. Brandon wants to be friends. Candace wants money. What do you want to do? Rebecca asked. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But I want to make sure there's no legal obligation for me to respond. There's not. You're divorced. You owe him nothing. And you've never had any legal or financial obligation to your sister. Good. Because I'm ignoring both of them. That's your right. Later that week, Patricia called with more news from home. Your mother is having a breakdown, she said. Apparently she's realized that her efforts to keep everyone happy have left her with nobody. Candace won't talk to her because Gloria won't give her money. Brandon barely talks to her because she keeps telling him what a mistake he made. Brianna is still living with her but barely speaks to her. And you're 3,000 miles away. That sounds like a Gloria problem, not a Naomi problem, I said. True. But she's apparently been telling everyone that she's lost her whole family because of what happened. She lost her family because she chose the wrong side. Actions have consequences. I told her the same thing. She didn't like hearing it. I felt a small flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but it died quickly. Gloria had made her choices just like everyone else. She had known about the affair for 3 months and said nothing. She had sat in my living room and watched my world end without trying to stop it. She could deal with the consequences. November brought an unexpected visit. Harold called and asked if he could come to Seattle. His grandson, not Brandon but Carter, Candace's baby, needed surgery for a minor issue, and he wanted to discuss something with me in person. I almost said no. But Harold had been kind to me, had apologized when no one else had, and I agreed to meet him for coffee. He looked older than I remembered, more tired, the weight of his son's mistakes showing in new lines on his face. Thank you for meeting with me, he said, stirring sugar into his coffee. Of course. How's Carter? He's fine. The surgery went well. He's home now with Candace. That's good. Harold took a deep breath. I'm not here to ask you to help them. I know you have no obligation to Brandon or Candace. But I wanted to tell you that I'm helping with the baby. Financially and otherwise. I don't want my grandson to suffer because of his parents' poor choices. That's good of you, I said, and I meant it. I also wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you. For how you handled everything. For building a new life. For not letting them destroy you. Brandon talks about you sometimes, about how he wishes he could go back and make different choices. But the truth is, I think you're better off without him. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, Harold. That means a lot. You were always too good for him, Harold said with a sad smile. I just wish he'd realized it before it was too late. We talked for another hour about neutral things. His retirement. My new house. The Seattle weather. When we parted ways, he hugged me and told me to take care of myself. You deserve all the happiness in the world, he said. I drove home feeling lighter somehow. Not forgiven exactly but acknowledged. Validated. See. That evening, Jerome came over and found me cooking dinner, something I had started doing more often. "You seem happy," he said, kissing my cheek. "I am happy," I realized. "For the first time in a long time, I'm actually happy." "Good. Because I wanted to talk to you about something." My stomach flipped. Those words usually meant something serious. "Okay," I said cautiously. "I know we've only been together about 6 months, but it feels longer. Feels right. And I was wondering if you'd want to move in together. Not immediately. But maybe in a few months? When you're ready?" I looked at him, this man who had been patient and kind and steady. This man who had never lied to me, never betrayed me, never made me feel like I was too much or not enough. "I'd like that," I said. "When I'm ready." "No rush," Jerome said. "Just putting it out there." We ate dinner on the deck, watching the city lights come on one by one, and I felt something I hadn't felt in over a year: peace. Not the peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the peace that comes from knowing you survived. You rebuilt. You won. My phone buzzed with a text from Brianna. "Hey Mom, can we video chat this weekend? I have something I want to show you." I texted back, "Sure. Saturday morning? Perfect. Love you." I stared at those 2 words for a long moment. Love you. She hadn't said that in over a year. I typed back, "Love you too." And I meant it. Despite everything, despite the hurt and the betrayal and the distance, I still loved my daughter. I was still her mother. And maybe, slowly, we could rebuild what had been broken. Not the same as before, but something new. Something honest. Something real. December marked 14 months since the ambush. 14 months since my old life ended and my new life began. Seattle was dressed in holiday lights, rain falling softly on streets filled with last-minute shoppers. I stood in my kitchen, preparing for Brianna's first visit. She was flying in tomorrow, staying for a week. I had set up the guest room with fresh sheets and flowers. Jerome had offered to make himself scarce, but I told him to stay. Brianna needed to meet him, needed to see that I had moved on, that I was happy. My phone buzzed. Patricia, checking in as she always did. "Ready for tomorrow?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "I'm nervous." "That's normal. But you two have been video chatting for months now. It's going to be fine." She was right. Brianna and I had slowly rebuilt our relationship through weekly calls. She told me about school, her friends, her therapy. I told her about work, about Seattle, about Jerome. We didn't talk about Brandon or Candace or that terrible night. We both knew those conversations would come eventually, but for now we were focused on moving forward. The doorbell rang. Jerome, coming over to help me finish decorating the guest room. "You're going to be a great host," he said, hanging curtains while I fluffed pillows. "Stop worrying. I can't help it. What if it's awkward? What if she hates Seattle? What if she resents me for leaving?" Jerome climbed down from the stepladder and pulled me into a hug. "Then you'll deal with it. Together. Because that's what you do now. You face things instead of running from them." He was right. The old me would have avoided this conversation, avoided the discomfort, tried to keep everyone happy. The new me understood that real relationships required honesty, even when it hurt. Brianna's plane landed at 2 the next afternoon. I waited at arrivals, scanning the crowd for her face. When she appeared, pulling a small suitcase, she looked older than I remembered. Still 16, still my daughter, but different somehow. More mature. More thoughtful. "Mom," she said, and then we were hugging, both of us crying, both of us holding on like we might never let go. "I missed you so much," I said into her hair. "I missed you too." The drive to my house was filled with small talk. How was the flight? Did she eat? Was she tired? All the safe questions we had perfected over months of video calls. But underneath it all was the real conversation we both knew was coming. My house surprised her. I could see it in her face when we walked in. "Wow, Mom. Wow. You like it?" "I love it. So you." Light and clean and peaceful. Jerome came over for dinner that evening. I had warned Brianna he would be there, wanted her to be prepared. She was polite but reserved, watching him carefully, evaluating whether he was good enough for her mother. "So you're an architect?" she asked over pasta. "I am. I design commercial buildings mostly. How about you? Any idea what you want to do after high school?" "Maybe psychology. I've learned a lot about it through therapy." They talked easily about careers in college in Seattle. By the time dessert came around, Brianna was smiling more, relaxing into the evening. After Jerome left, Brianna and I sat on the deck with hot chocolate, wrapped in blankets against the cold. "He seems nice," she said. "He is nice. Are you happy with him?" "I am. He's good to me. Honest. Reliable. All the things I thought I had before but didn't. Brianna was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry I didn't see what Dad was doing. I'm sorry I believed his version of things. You were manipulated by adults who should have protected you. That's not your fault. I should have known better. I should have questioned why everyone was acting so weird. But I wanted to believe Dad. I wanted to think he was the good guy and you were just too busy with work to notice us. Is that what he told you? That's what everyone told me. Dad said you were married to your job. Aunt Candace said you were cold and distant. Even Grandma said you had always been more focused on your career than family. The words stung even though I had suspected as much. They had all worked together to rewrite history, to paint me as the villain in their story. And what do you think now? I asked. I think they were wrong. I think you worked hard to provide for us and they took advantage of that. I think Dad wanted an excuse to feel justified in his affair, so he convinced himself our marriage was already over. And I think I was stupid enough to believe him because it was easier than accepting that my father was cheating with my aunt. You weren't stupid. You were 14. I'm 16 now. Old enough to understand what I did and why it was wrong. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights below. How is he? I finally asked. Your father. Struggling. He's trying to rebuild his business, but people don't trust him anymore. He sees Carter once a week, pays child support, but he's not really involved. I think he regrets everything, but it's too late to take it back. And Candace? Living in a tiny apartment with a baby, working part-time at a grocery store. She tried to reach out to me a few times, but I told her I wasn't interested. I'm done pretending we're family. That must have been hard. It was the easiest decision I've made in a year. She destroyed our family for her fairy tale romance, and now she's dealing with the reality. I don't have any sympathy for her. I was surprised by the steel in Brianna's voice. My soft-hearted daughter had grown up in the past year, learned the hard way that actions have consequences. What about Grandma? I asked. She's depressed. She keeps trying to fix everything, but there's nothing to fix. The family is broken. You're gone. I'm angry. Dad is miserable. Candace is struggling. And she's stuck in the middle, realizing that trying to keep everyone happy means nobody's happy. I'm sorry you're dealing with all this. I'm not sorry you left, Brianna said, turning to look at me. I was at first. I thought you abandoned us. But now I understand. You didn't abandon us. You saved yourself. And that's exactly what you should have done. The tears came then, the ones I had been holding back since she arrived. My daughter understood. My daughter saw the truth. My daughter had come back to me. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For being brave enough to see the truth. For being strong enough to admit you were wrong. For being here. I'm your daughter. Where else would I be? The rest of the week was easier. We went shopping, explored Seattle, drove to the mountains. Jerome joined us for a few meals and I watched Brianna gradually warm to him. She saw how he treated me, how he listened, how he made me laugh. She saw what a healthy relationship looked like. On her last night, we sat in the living room while she packed. I've been thinking, she said, about after graduation. About college. What about it? There are good schools in Seattle. I could apply here. If you'd want that. My heart stopped. Are you serious? I'm serious. I don't want to be around Dad and Aunt Candace and all that drama anymore. I want to be here. With you. If you'll have me. Of course I'll have you. This is your home too. It always will be. Brianna smiled, really smiled for the first time in over a year. Good. Because I really like it here. The night before she left, Patricia called to catch up. How's the visit going? Better than I hoped. She's talking about moving here for college. That's huge. How do you feel about it? Terrified. Excited. Hopeful. All of it at once. That's parenting, I guess. We talked for an hour about work and life and the new client I was landing next week. When we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my house and felt grateful. For Patricia. For Jerome. For Brianna. For second chances. Christmas came and Brianna flew back to Seattle to spend it with me. Jerome joined us for dinner and the three of us exchanged gifts and watched movies and built something that felt like family. Not the family I had before. But a new family. One built on honesty and choice and healing. January brought news through Patricia that Brandon and Candace had both moved on. Brandon was seeing someone seriously, a teacher with no connection to our past. Candace was dating a single father she met at a parenting class. Gloria was in therapy, finally dealing with her tendency to people please at the expense of her own boundaries. I felt nothing hearing this news. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Just a mild curiosity about people who used to be central to my life but were now just characters in a story I no longer lived. Spring brought Brianna's college acceptance letters. She got into 3 schools in Seattle and chose the one closest to my house. We celebrated with Jerome, and I watched my daughter laugh and plan her future and felt a fierce pride. She had survived. We had survived. And we had done it by walking away from toxicity and toward truth. 1 year later, on the anniversary of Brianna's first visit to Seattle, we stood on my deck watching the sunset. She was 17 now, preparing for her senior year, spending the summer with me before going back to finish school. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Leaving everything behind?" "No," I said without hesitation. "Best decision I ever made. Even though it was hard? Especially because it was hard. Easy choices rarely lead anywhere worth going." Brianna nodded, understanding in a way she couldn't have 2 years ago. She had learned the same lesson, had walked away from people who hurt her, had chosen herself over comfort. "I'm proud of you, Mom." "I'm proud of you too, baby." Jerome appeared in the doorway. "Dinner's ready. And I have news." We went inside, and over pasta that Jerome had made from scratch, he told us about the promotion he had been offered. Lead architect on a major downtown project. More money. More recognition. More opportunities. "That's incredible," I said, kissing him. "Congratulations," Brianna added. "I couldn't have done it without this one," Jerome said, nodding at me. "She encouraged me to take risks, to go after what I wanted, to believe I deserved good things." I smiled, remembering when I had needed to learn those same lessons. When Patricia and Rebecca and even Thomas the private investigator had helped me believe I deserved better than betrayal and lies. After dinner, Brianna went to bed early, tired from a day of exploring the city. Jerome and I cleaned up the kitchen together, moving in the easy rhythm of 2 people who had learned each other's patterns. "I love you," he said, drying a plate. "I love you too. I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" "Moving in together. For real this time. What do you think?" I thought about it. About sharing my space. About being vulnerable again. About trusting someone not to hurt me. It was scary. But it was also right. "I think yes," I said. "I think I'm ready." That night, lying in bed, I thought about the past 2 years. About the woman I had been, walking into her living room to find her family waiting to tell her that her time was over. About the woman I was now, strong and healed and surrounded by people who genuinely loved her. My time hadn't been over. It had just been beginning. I had lost a husband who didn't value me, a sister who betrayed me, a mother who chose wrong. But I had gained myself, my strength, my voice, my peace. And I had gained a daughter who had found her way back to me. A partner who treated me with respect and love. A career that challenged and fulfilled me. A city that felt like home. The betrayal had broken me open. But in the breaking, I had found something stronger than what I had before. I had found the version of myself that didn't need approval or validation or permission. I had found Naomi Winters, not as someone's wife or sister or daughter, but as herself. Complete. Whole. Free. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Happy anniversary of your freedom. Proud of you, friend." I texted back, "Thank you for everything." Because it was true. I was grateful. Not for the betrayal itself, but for what came after. For the person I had become. For the life I had built. For the understanding that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads you exactly where you need to be. Outside my window, Seattle glowed in the darkness. Inside my house, everything I needed was right here. My daughter sleeping in the guest room. My partner beside me. My dog at the foot of the bed. My career waiting for me tomorrow. My future stretching out ahead of me, full of possibility. They had told me my time was over. They had been wrong. My time was just beginning. And this time I was the only one writing my story.